We live in a noisy world, one that's full of distractions, blind spots, and all too often ego. In the midst of this, I am more and more convinced that in order to live and lead wisely, we need to recover the art of listening. Today's guest, leadership and business expert Dr. Rhonda Butler, says that listening is not just a leadership skill, but a spiritual mandate. When leaders don't listen, we erode trust, silence voices, tarnish reputations, and cause real harm. But when we do listen, we learn, we build trust, and as Max De Pree would say, we actually abandon ourselves to the gifts of others. I'm eager for you to learn from Rhonda today as she helps us grow in self awareness, deal with it when we get it wrong, and listen our way toward wisdom. Rhonda, I have been looking forward to having this conversation on the podcast since we first met. So thank you so much for being here today.
Thank you so much, Michaela. I have been looking forward to it since our first email meeting. And so thank you for this opportunity. I'm really looking forward to our conversation today.
Well, just as by way of context and intro, I would love for you to tell our listeners just a bit about your work context,
Okay.
including
Yeah.
a bit of your
Yeah.
professional journey and how
Yeah.
you got there. I think it's a pretty interesting story.
Well, thank you. It is definitely a nonlinear kind of story here. When I think about my professional journey, even though I say that I've had different experiences, what I can say is that they have all led me to a passion for leadership and developing leaders. And so along this journey, I have gone from being a student of management and leadership, and actually, I'm a lifelong student. I think, yeah, leadership development is lifelong. To being a practitioner of sorts, a professor, and an executive leadership coach. Um, I've structured the rest of my career around the power of leaders investing in others. And so I've been in higher ed now. I did spend some space in leading in ministry and mission based organizations. In addition to that, um, going back to school, getting a seminary degree, eventually a PhD in leadership studies. Been in higher education for 25 years and committed, more than 25 years, excuse me, committed to not just providing teaching and courses in management and leadership, but providing experiences. So, really big on connecting students at every level, whether they're undergraduate, graduate, whether they are adult learners that are continuing their education, create experiences where students can develop skills and confidence in presenting ideas to leaders in the C-suite. I am at High Point University. Before stepping into my current role, I served as the director of the MBA program, and now I joyfully um, lead as the founding executive director of Women's Leadership and the inaugural director of the Women's L.I.F.T Fellowship, which stands for Leading and Inspiring Female Trailblazers. And together we collaborate on helping students develop confidence, leadership skills, providing networking and mentoring. And so I just absolutely love it.
Mm. Yeah, I can tell. I love the for those listening, Rhonda gets a big smile when she talks about her work, which is just really encouraging. Okay, I want to pull out a couple things you said and then ask you a question. So something I heard in there was leaders are learners. And that's absolutely, you and I have that same conviction, right? And that's, I think, why both of us are in higher ed is that one of the very best leadership development strategies comes with mining what's happening and learning along the way, whether you're pre-career or early career, mid executive, or even in
Yes.
what we call the De Pree Center, the third of life. So leaders are learners. I feel kind of inspired around the full circle nature. You're talking about the mentor who made a difference when you were at Price Waterhouse, and now you're doing that exact same matching for young women who are aspiring to the same kind of trajectories that you've been on. And so just calling out that sometimes our greatest work comes from going back and looking at
Right.
the difference makers for us,
Yes,
right? And
right,
I really hear that in your
right.
story.
Exactly. I really do believe wholeheartedly that that experience, what I could have just felt like, "Oh my gosh, this is too hard. I'm so new at this. I don't have a family background in this area." But for somebody to, just step in and just kinda share some wisdom with me, which we're kinda talking about today, has just made a lasting impression, and I'm happy to do that work, and I did it before. So some of those internship opportunities and matching and coaching opportunities came from leadership classes that were co-ed. But now having the opportunity to also, in addition, work with audiences that also have a different journey. Women's leadership is a different journey often, and so to also equip and make sure that women leaders are not forgotten, that they have contacts and networks and leadership development opportunities. It just brings me great joy. It's something I
Mm,
experience and I want to share.
mm. Well, thank you for the work you do. And you use two words that I want to pick up on now. You use the word wisdom and you use the word listening. So for those who are listening and have been following along with season two, you know that our theme of this season of the hidden work of leadership is wisdom. Now, if you're new to the podcast, what do we mean by the hidden work of leadership? At the De Pree Center a few years ago, we did a project where we looked at executives and Christian leaders in the marketplace asking questions related to their own flourishing. What does it mean when they're doing well, and how does that impact their systems? And one of the things that really became clear in that study, and I think my own life experience supports this, is that some of the most important work we do at leaders is not up out front. It's not on the stage. It's with a it's with a few. It's hidden. It's in important and hard and even liminal or crucible kinds of conversations.
Oh,
So
yes.
the point of this podcast is to kind of bring some of those things to light. So I want to ask you a question, Rhonda,
Mm,
and this is about wisdom.
mhm.
Wisdom is a broad term and means a lot of different things to different people, and we haven't gotten hyper specific. But when you talk about listening, you talked
Mhm.
about that first mentor who listened to you.
Yes.
I've heard you reference it in other conversations. How do you think listening connects to how you understand the idea of wisdom?
That's a great question. And when I think about that, I will say that what I have seen, also experienced, like you said, Michaela, and even in my studies, my own lived experiences, that wisdom and listening go hand in hand. Um, sometimes people will think just broadly that wisdom, and they're right, wisdom is about knowledge and experiences and good judgment. But I challenge that. In addition to that, a wise leader realizes that he or she doesn't have that knowledge and all experience, and that judgment is informed. And so when I think about wisdom, I think about that it's not just knowing what the right thing to say and do is, it's also about inviting other voices to inform what you know so that you can make better decisions and you are better equipped to say and do things well. So it's an interesting thing. Again, what I've seen, and there's a lot of context. I'm probably sure we'll get to that a little bit later. So in scholarship and also Bible study as well, too, that listening actually expands our thinking, expands our knowledge. We have the opportunity to grow, get insights and perspectives and even truths, okay? Truths that we couldn't know just depending on what we have just within us. It's balance processing. I'll talk about that if we get to that a little bit later. But all in all, when I think about the connection, wisdom also, like learning, is a continuous journey.
You know, I was something that is dawning on me, fresh as you're talking, so thank you for underlining it, is when you think about listening as a leader, the obstacles that potentially get in the way of doing that. One would be something like ego, right? We're talking, and I feel like you sort of talked about humility. No, I know the right way, and it's my job to keep moving
Yeah,
and
yeah.
going. The other might be I haven't actually, or we haven't cultivated the right voices at the table, so I don't even know that I'm not listening. There's some blindness there. But the third thing, and I want to get your reaction here, that's really surfacing as you're talking, is just our attention culture. Like sometimes we're not listening because our brains are moving so
Oh,
fast.
yeah.
We are moving so fast. So what of those
Yeah.
three do you think are the biggest obstacles to the kind of listening
Oh,
that you're wanting to reinforce?
goodness. I don't know that I can say that one of them is the biggest. I think it's a combination of the 3, and for wisdom is acknowledging that all of that is going on around us.
Sure.
I was
Uh-huh.
listening to one of your other podcasts too, and I heard someone talking about listening with within, and I so
Yeah.
completely agrees. And then I agree also that, again, this we can't know everything here. We know wisdom comes from God, but there's a lot of scripture that also says it comes from good counsel and wise counsel. But I think when you're right when you say there's so much going on, leaders, we have a lot on our minds. There's a lot vying for our attention. What I believe, if I hope I'm not going too far from your question, but what I believe is intentionality, to
Mm.
stop
Mhm. Yeah.
and
Yeah.
pause to hear inside and out,
Yeah.
what's going on, what's being said, what's being observed, um, standing on the balcony, so to speak, and watching and listening as well for leaders so that we don't rush into judgment. We don't rush into making decisions with limited knowledge. Um, yeah, and we take a moment to appreciate the space and the opportunity to lead and be informed, and leadership happens with others, because without others anyway, we're not leading anyway. Leadership is that dynamic thing that is happening between people. Um,
Mhm. Mhm.
and so it requires us
Mhm.
to tap in.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Leadership is that dynamic thing that's happening between people. I think
Mhm,
that's
mhm,
gold right there. You reference Ronald Heifetz, and Marty Linsky, the getting on the balcony
mhm,
imagery, and
mhm.
so for those of our listeners who
Yeah.
are one like that, "Oh, it's a nice idea." It's this basically in order to enact or create spaces in which change can happen, leaders and in the dynamicness that's happening,
Mhm.
dynamism, maybe that would be a better word. We can fact check me later on how to use that word. But you have to both be on the dance floor
Yeah.
and on the balcony at the same
Yeah,
time.
right.
I think, Rhonda, that's the clarion message that feels really relevant in what you're saying right now. Because like, okay, yeah, we know, like, listening, of course, but
Mhm.
it's a discipline. It's to get up on that
Yeah.
dance floor requires intentionality and
Uh-huh.
to freshly remind ourselves, and for those listening to say, "Okay, where is that built into my day? Where is that built
Yeah.
into my week? Where is that built into my month or my quarter? Do I have that listening space with the right people in the
Mhm.
intentional way
Mhm.
that Rhonda's describing?" Rhonda, you started to go here a little bit, but I'm curious. Many of our listeners are people of faith, people of
Mhm.
Christian
Mhm.
faith.
Mhm.
Where do we see this relation, either listening
Mhm.
in particular, but how listening gets us to wisdom? Where do we see that playing out either in the scriptures
Okay.
or in the Christian tradition?
Yes. there are some things I remember committing, to memory early in my career, but all in all, I will see that the Bible is full of, um, guidance and, a call to wisdom and listening hand in hand. And one of the scriptures that stands out to me, Proverbs, of course, is full.
Uh-huh, uh-huh.
It's wisdom literature, okay? But in Proverbs, it's so interesting that a lot of times it's just really clear where listening and wisdom go hand in hand. So, for
Okay.
example, in Proverbs, chapter 1, there is, I think that is verse 5. I have to just see, but it says something like this. I'm gonna paraphrase, okay? Let the wise listen. Uh-huh.
Mm.
And add to their
You got it. That
learning.
was it.
Okay,
I'm
and
sorry. You got it.
thank
Yeah.
you. Let the wise listen, and here was the thing that always that caught me. Let the wise listen and add to their
Mm.
learning.
Yes,
And so
yes.
that stayed with me. It was something that I heard growing up, and an older person said it to me, and when she said it, I was like, "Wow." I thought she was wise, and I was like, "Ooh, I've learned something here." She's just shared with me something from scripture that says, "Wise listen and
Yeah.
add to their learning." But for Christians, for me, when I think about it, listening, is not just a leadership skill, it's a spiritual discipline. It's a
Yeah.
spiritual
That's right.
mandate. And
That's right.
we're reminded in scripture about how wisdom and listening go hand in
Mhm.
hand.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Mhm. I first of all, you, passed the pop Bible quiz of getting the verses right.
Well, notice I didn't tell
So
you all the other ones in Proverbs and
that's right, yeah.
Ecclesiastes. It's just
You're like,
like,
stop
okay,
checking me
okay,
along the
all
way,
right,
yeah.
okay.
I'm very, I'm ve as you talked and as you went through those verses, I keep getting the image, like, the word pace is coming up.
Mm, okay.
And the word pace, because it's this rhythm maybe and movement
Mm,
between listening and acting,
mhm,
between seeking and doing,
mhm,
and there's this sense of, now I'm picture, like, going to the well. You're talking about a
mm,
spiritual discipline, which is
mhm,
something
mhm,
we enact over time, and there's really this rhythm piece, and
mhm,
I don't know about you, Rhonda, but sometimes I feel like, "Yeah, I got that, and I am with people, and I'm doing it," and
yeah,
other times,
yeah,
I'm like, "Ooh, oh, wait a minute. I haven't been doing that." And it can happen before you even
right,
realize it.
right.
And so what do you observe and what have you experienced happens when we as Christians
Ooh,
leading across
right.
industries are not fully listening in the way you're inviting us to?
Mhm, mhm. Michaela, there are so many examples, and, what I can say, I mean, they're case studies, right? And it may not be framed as this is a case study in listening, but when you dig through, you can see that listening or lack thereof, was a portion in some things that have happened. But I want to make it personal as well as organizational for a second, because what comes to mind is, I want you, to think about, you and I or anybody, a listener, to think about what happens when you have some good news, okay? And you share it with somebody. The good news, it might be, "Oh, I just got a promotion," or "I, just got into this program that I have been working so hard to get into." Um, and you share it with someone and you realize that you're not being heard because maybe, let's just say you share that good news, and instead of celebrating with you, the person maybe ignores it or changes the subject. I mean, I don't know about you, but maybe you're sharing some news and somebody says, "Oh, that's okay, but let me tell you what happened in my day. Let me tell you what my kid did, or or what I got." Or something like, you share good news and they not only one up you, but they say something like, "Oh, I thought you were trying to go for something bigger." I want you to think about, like, how you feel when that happens. I mean, you probably feel dismissed, you feel unheard, you might feel devalued, and you're probably less likely to wanna share with that person again. So then imagine that that person is your boss, the leader. What that does to stifle, um, people in the workplace is hard. So what I'm finding where I'm going with this is that when leaders don't listen, um, damage can run deep. And it's not just about the decision making that we talked about. It's not just about poor decision making. It's about how not listening, when a leader does not listen, it has the potential to erode trust. It can silence voices. It can tarnish reputations, including the leader's reputation, and it can create like a ripple that can harm people and organizations and even society. So I could tell you a personal story, but I'll tell you one that most people can remember, right? You might remember case studies of, you remember the BP oil spill, right? And I'm thinking about how in hindsight, when things were uncovered, we found that engineers have been raising flags, all along, but, people weren't tuned in to listen. Same thing, there are just so many scandals, we won't go through them all, but I think that's what we learned from them is the reason why I'm bringing them up. Uh, Volkswagen, what did they call it? Emissions gate, same thing that there were people that said, "Hey, there seems to be something going on with, with how the software might be manipulating things," but, you know, leaders just doubled down, right? And look at what happened. Look in both cases, there were fines, it's disastrous, there are billions, in losses. And that's big picture, harm to society, all those kinds of things. But I've been hesitant to share it, but I will. I will say because I think that when we reflect, and you mentioned that earlier, Michaela, we think about our own egos and stuff, and learning there are things that we learn about leadership that comes from experiences. And so I had done some reflection. There was a moment that if I look back and I think about it, I I one time worked with a senior leader that I really trusted and admired for years, and, she was a supporter of my work in the workplace, and what seemed to be out of nowhere, another person had come in and began misrepresenting me, even after all those years. And instead of that leader who I trusted coming directly to me, she began to make decisions on one-sided information, and these were professional decisions. And so made some decisions that impacted me professionally without ever the professional courtesy of, of talking with me to understand, listening to my side to understand and hear truth. And what I realized about that is that when that happened, um, I wasn't in some conversations, but by the time I was brought in, it was no longer like it felt like an ambush and not a conversation. And so it was very hurtful. I remember walking away from that time and I was shocked and I was hurt and I will tell you, Michaela, I lost some sleep because I was trying to figure out where did it come from, at that particular time and other things happened. But what really happened when I stopped to reflect is it again taught me a lesson. And that's a good thing because what I remembered is how I felt. And I remembered, okay, as a leader, I started thinking about this and it might sound silly. I was like, okay, now Rhonda, you were created with two ears, one on each side. And so I think about good leaders having balanced processing. So before we make our minds up about something or just focus just what's here, we hear and we are informed by different sides and different perspectives. And
Yeah.
when we do that, I think that that's wisdom, and it
Mm.
helps to generate trust and not only foster it, but maintain it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Wow. Thank you for sharing that story. That is really tough to imagine. And I know I can resonate with it. And I know many of our listeners are shaking their head thinking they have some similar kind of story in their own experience. And so your willingness to uh, share that and also link that to how you've learned and what
Mhm,
you've taken away
mhm.
from that and
Yeah.
this terminology of balance processing, which I
Mhm.
think is really helpful. Yeah, I want to just thank you and honor the fact that you shared that story
Thank you.
with us.
Mm.
It leads me to another question, Rhonda. I like, in my own mind, so you're talking and I'm like, "Yeah, I wanna lead like this," and this is I mean, not the last story, I don't wanna lead like that, but, the I wanna listen. I wanna listen in a balanced way, and
Uh-huh.
I want our teams to listen, and I wanna be part of organizations that listen,
Uh-huh. Uh-huh.
and I know that sometimes we get it wrong.
Oh, yeah.
We fail,
Oh, yeah.
and sometimes we miss the step,
Oh,
and
yes.
I think part of what happens is sometimes we don't know what to do with those mistakes, and we kinda retreat, and we don't necessarily learn in the way, and we kind of repeat the cycle. So
Mhm, mhm.
what is
Yeah.
your advice to
Yeah.
all of us
Right.
that are human,
Right.
all of us
Right.
that are imperfect at listening?
Yeah.
What should we do when we realize we've gotten it wrong?
Yeah, that's a great question because also that experience made me think about it. It was like I even thought about things from the experience I shared and the experiences with the disasters that have come out, and just everyday experiences that people tell me about as a coach. I hear it. And so, Michaela, I think you have asked a wise question because you said as humans, and you're exactly right. It's not a matter of if we'll make a mistake. It's like when, right? Because we are human. And so what I've found as I've studied organizations, and I know you have too, and leaders, and reflected on lived experiences, my own and others, is that, oftentimes people are willing to, I'm not just gonna say forgive, but understand that mistakes happen when leaders will they will forgive. I will say even forgive. We've seen people bounce back, right? We have seen people bounce back and organizations bounce back. But when leaders, will, step up, and we'll talk about what that means, people are willing to forgive. But what I found also is that people are really they struggle. People struggle, your teams struggle, your employees struggle, your, um, family members struggle. People struggle when leaders refuse to acknowledge, a mistake or pretend that it didn't happen because, again, that erodes trust and credibility, right? And respect. But when 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 leaders, and you talked about ego earlier. I heard you say that sometimes we don't listen. And ego is not necessarily just a bad thing. We all have it, right? We get busy. We're like, oh, we have that experience already. We know that already, blah, 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 blah. But sometimes the ego is like, I don't want to appear wrong. I'm the leader. People don't expect me to appear wrong or to be wrong. So sometimes it's that false narrative that we say, the
Uh,
assumption that
uh-huh.
people expect us to be perfect, and so sometimes some leaders may even prioritize being right over doing the right thing, and when that happens, the cost is steep. So, um, I often kinda put it this way, and this is my own, and maybe it's just a memorable saying for me that, Leaders who shape up after a slip up are leaders that others want to follow.
Yeah. Say that again.
Yeah.
Leaders.
Leaders who shape up after a
Mhm.
slip up are leaders that others
Yeah.
want to follow.
I appreciate that so much because I think, on the one hand, we know we should listen.
Mhm.
People know we should listen. And there's all this stuff that gets in the way. And many people are actually working to listen a lot of the time, but there's really no chance that anyone's going to get it right 100% of the time.
Mm-mm.
And I I have found in my own experience, both observing others and when I've gotten it wrong, that what happens after it goes wrong is actually kind of the whole ball game.
It is.
It's like, okay, wait, that's actually the moment where
That is.
it ends up building trust because you're like, oh, I'm
Exactly.
imperfect.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
I want to end with the proverb that you pulled from memory perfectly. Just by the way, uh, 1-5.
Oh,
Let
goodness gracious.
Let the wise listen and
Mhm.
add to their learning. I think what you have called us to do
Mhm.
is to be
Mhm.
learners and to
Yeah.
learn our way
Yeah.
into more listening
Yeah.
for the sake of leading wisely
Um,
in this complex world. Um, and so I just want to give you the last word
yeah.
and say thank you so much for joining
Oh,
us on the podcast.
wow. Thank you. I appreciate your insight in this conversation so much. And one thing popped in my mind as you were wrapping up, helping us get to a close is that sometimes we listen, but we've not really, a lot of us have never been trained to listen. We've been trained
Mm,
to communicate. I mean,
yeah.
very early on, right? Somebody was in front of us, somebody that we love, trying to get us to say mama, dada, or something else. And we value talking and we say communication is a valuable skill, but how many of us have really been taught to listen? And so I actually work with students and executives on like different ways we listen. But at the root of it is something that Covey said is listening to understand versus being understood. So many of us jump into that. And I think that goes along with wisdom, right? It's not just what people understand from us, but how much we understand from others. And so I just invite everybody. I just really thank you for this opportunity, and Michaela, just to know that we don't operate in silos as leaders. We don't become wise. We don't lead. We don't become wise in these silos. It takes community. So I just encourage other people to regularly seek feedback and listen, whether it is wise counsel, godly counsel. Go to the Bible first, of course, scripture, because wisdom comes from God who gives it to us freely without finding fault. Thank the Lord for that. But also think about godly counsel, think about mentors, think about your personal board of directors that will tell you the truth. It doesn't always
Mhm.
have to be sugary. But think about your inner circle as well too. People that will hold us accountable, um, and share, with us perspectives that will just help us all be better, leaders. And I believe that when we commit to wisdom that comes through knowledge from learning and from others, experiences, not just our own, but the experiences of others and perspectives and insight, then we get a good judgment. And so we create the space for truly listening to understand. And I believe that it'll make all kinds of relationships, workplaces, leadership, personal relationships. And I believe and I've seen that it makes the world better as well.
Mm, thank you.
Thank you. Michaela, this has been so much fun. Thank you for everything. I appreciate it.
Likewise, so good to have you here.
Thank you for tuning in to the hidden work of leadership. We hope you enjoyed today's episode and found it insightful. The Hidden Work of Leadership is brought to you by the Max De Pree Center for Leadership at Fuller Seminary, where we envision a world in which leaders across industries and seasons of life are deeply formed as the people of God so that they might seek the very best for the people and systems entrusted to their care. Our episodes are produced by Justin Heap, who ensures our engineering and editing is engaging and sounds just right. If you enjoyed this episode, please consider subscribing, rating, and reviewing us on your favorite podcast platform. It really helps us reach more listeners like you. You can also follow the De Pree Center on LinkedIn and Instagram for updates and behind-the-scenes content. For more information about today's episode and access to additional resources, visit our website at depree.org. That's DEPREE.org. Thank you for listening, and we'll see you next time on The Hidden Work of Leadership.